RotoGrinders Daily Fantasy Football Podcasts are presented to you by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. They're doing it again this week 16. $1 million baller contest on Yahoo, and same deal as before. $250,000 in guaranteed overlay. That means they are putting $250,000 of their own money into this prize pool. That makes it the best value tournament of the week, bar none, over at Yahoo. And they're also doing it for NBA tonight, this Wednesday, and I believe for Friday as well. You're looking at $200,000 guaranteed tournament with $50K in guaranteed overlay. Make sure you check them out. It's rotogrinders.com/Yahoo, and be sure to use promo code Grinders30 for a $30 matching bonus on that first deposit over at Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. Hey everyone, what's going on? Dan Bach here. Yeah, unfamiliar voice on this podcast stream, but figured we'd jump in here today with a special edition fantasy football podcast for you because as you've probably seen on the podcast stream, we've got a new sponsor. It is Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, and we have been pumping them a lot over the last week and a half, and we're going to continue doing so because they've got some amazing stuff going on. So this podcast, not just going to be an interview with a couple of guys from Yahoo. I'm going to come back with a special guest, and we're going to be breaking down the big NFL contest coming up this weekend on Yahoo. So some Yahoo-specific fantasy football content here on the RotoGrinders Daily Fantasy Football feed. But joining me first, we head to both California and New York. What a wonderful world of technology we have that we can be in Florida, New York, and California and sound like we're in the same room. We've got Alex Healy. He is the what do I want to call you? The senior product marketing manager. And then Daniel Haight, who of course is, it just said head of Yahoo Daily Fantasy. Is that right, Daniel? Are you the true head? Or are you a product guy? What's your title?
I think so. Product lead, business lead. You know, it depends on the day, but yeah, run daily fantasy for Yahoo.
Awesome. And you guys have done something that has been eye-opening. And I've been in daily fantasy for, oh boy, probably since the beginning, near the beginning, before, you know, even some of your competitors were out in the space. And I don't think I've ever seen somebody have $250,000 in a guaranteed overlay tournament, let alone doing it back-to-back weeks, as we've got it again this week after coming off that $1 million baller a week ago. Alex, let's start with you. I mean, you're the marketing guy here. Tell me exactly what the plan is, because you guys are, you know, we're upwards of over $500,000 in just football contests alone that you guys are more or less giving away. So what's the plan here? What's going on?
Yeah, we are not just insane or crazy. We are looking really forward towards next year. Fantasy is obviously a big part of Yahoo Sports. And we're going to continue our investment into not only a season-long product, but daily product as well next year. I know a lot of people have been waiting around for this since 2015 when we launched. But, you know, really just the timing was thinking ahead to next year. We have a lot of people who are getting, you know, knocked out of their fantasy playoffs by Derrick Henrys of the world. And, you know, we see people come into daily and, you know, we just figured the timing couldn't be better and just want to give our users a good experience to finish the year.
Giving users a good experience is certainly one thing, but, you know, combining, you know, adding that much money to player pools week in and week out is borderline insane, like you said. I mean, was this something, you know, I kind of want to get back, though, to what you mentioned before, is you guys have been around since 2015. I mean, what was the delay in actually coming forth with, you know, heavy promotion on this product? Because this isn't brand new by any measure, but I do think there's plenty of people who probably haven't played the product until maybe this past week. So what are the circumstances around that? Because I imagine, you know, you and Dan were, you know, probably trying to get this to happen years ago, because there's, you know, if you build something, the last thing you want is or the one thing you want is to get word out about it. So why the delay and why now?
Yeah, I think if you look, you know, sort of at the history of DFS, you know, you saw the bidding war and the spending war on TV between some of our competitors. And, this wasn't our only business. And I think that's just something that we didn't want to get into. We still had season-long product. As you start to see some of the things Yahoo Sports has done over the last year, streaming every NFL game for free on their phone. We now have, NBA League Pass on your phone. We are trying to just give, fans sort of the most access to, whether it's NFL or NBA or just sports in general, and content. And, one of the ways I think you can get people to be more engaged in sports they love is daily fantasy, obviously, and fantasy in general. So, as we look forward towards next year, daily fantasy has become a big part of our strategy and something we want to invest in. And so we just figured, what better time to invest than the end of the year around Christmas and, sort of the end of the season and the playoffs. And, I think we've always tried to be different in our product. And, I can let Dan speak to that a little bit. But, we really are just fan first. We want, whether you're playing free daily fantasy or $1 contests or $1,000, we want you to get whatever experience you desire out of our product. And it's actually pretty interesting, and Dan can check me on this, but the guy that took down 100K yesterday did single entry, one lineup, and out of 37,000, and took down the whole thing for 100K. And he'd just been playing for free for the last couple months. So anyone.
Was that like his first deposit into Yahoo, Dan, or his first deposit in a while? I'm sure you've looked at the metrics. Talk about the reactivation rate and the new players this promotion brought in just kind of after that first week. I'm sure everybody's curious about that.
Yeah, so the guy who won had made two separate $25 deposits over the last few weeks. And so $50 total and won 100K. So that was a pretty good return for him. But yeah, in general, we've seen great response to this campaign, this effort, which kind of speaks to exactly why we're doing it again for next week. We saw a ton of new users come in. We were able to re-engage a bunch of users that started with us back in 2015, and then continuing to engage the users that have kind of been with us along the way. So yeah, it's been a great week. It's been fun. I was talking to engineering the other day. It really felt like the start of the NFL season is always a ton of excitement here when everything when new features are out and we're testing everything and everybody's kind of working around the clock. It doesn't always feel that way this time of year, and it did, right? It felt like all that excitement was back, where it felt like the beginning of the season almost.
Well, I want to give you kudos on something which, might sound lame to listeners because we've actually been pretty good on this front lately in DFS. But in years past, when sites would do something crazy along these lines or run some sort of promotion that would bring more people to their site than maybe they've ever had in their existence, a lot of times the technology doesn't hold up. The technology held up, Dan. That's good. Don't take that lightly. I'm sure you might have been sweating it a little bit, knowing that you were going to have this huge influx of people coming to your site more than a typical Sunday. Absolutely. Always sweating it. But huge credit to our engineering team and everything they've built. The platform is very stable. And we've had a good year from that perspective. Yeah. And looking at, I know we're talking daily fantasy, but this isn't new to, these guys, bust their butt during NFL draft season when, a lot more users are coming to our platform. And, so we're built for this. So we're ready to take on more. Hopefully this weekend we get even more people coming and playing with us. Yeah. And, I think Dean said it best on Sunday morning when he basically said, if you're looking to play between $20 and $200 in daily fantasy on Sunday, you're basically, doing it wrong if you're not playing on Yahoo with the type of value you guys are supplanting, in these tournaments with this kind of overlay. So again, great time to check them out if you haven't done so. Now let's kind of talk about the product here a little bit, Dan. There are some distinguishing, differences between what you guys do and your competitors. And I think the one thing that stands out and which sometimes, can make it difficult to scale to run, massive 7-figure tournaments is a 10 entry max. I even wondered, like, is there a chance that they might increase that when I saw that you guys were going to host a $1 million tournament, but you didn't do it. Talk about the reason why you stuck with it and the plan moving forward and just the philosophy around, 10 entry max versus even raising it to, 20 or 30, which, is 2 or 3x, but it's not like the 150 that we see in a lot of your other competitors' sites.
Yeah, sure. When we launched in 2015, I would say there wasn't a whole lot that differentiated us from the main competition at the time. And so after those first few months, that first NFL season, we went back and we tried to figure out, how can we stand apart? What is, what can we do to this product to make it, more in line with Yahoo Sports and the season-long brand that we've built up over the years. And that around then is when we launched Fair Play. We called Fair Play. Where we did things like we labeled, experienced players, which is now the industry standard. But back then we were the first site to go out with it. We, banned scripting, which was again becoming industry standard. But then the kind of most significant change that you mentioned was we did a 10 entry max per contest per user, and no more than 1%. So for most of the contests, if there are 199 entries, we still it's single entry only. If we go up to 200 entries, that's when we'll allow for users to do the second entry. And then for the biggest contest, as you mentioned, it's a 10 entry max. And the reasoning behind there, we want to be, I think Alex mentioned it, we want to be fan first. We want to put our users first. We want to make sure everybody, has fun, enjoys their time on Yahoo, and really attempt to kind of level the playing field here, where we don't want you to have to use spreadsheets in order to compete. I know we obviously know that a lot of people do, and a lot of people will continue to do so, and they might, continue to have an edge. But by limiting at 10 entries, not having a CSV upload tool, which I know there's some discussion about, we think that really puts kind of the more casual sports fan who wants to do an entry here or there, really makes it for a more enjoyable experience where they don't have to worry about competing, with somebody who's doing this full time, who has, 150 lineups, and using different tools that they might have access to, but they might not want to play that way.
No, I don't have a problem with there not being a CSV upload at all. And I don't think most people probably do, but I think the argument could be made that, the fact that it is only 10 lineups that people are creating anyway, any sort of edge that brings is pretty negligible, because it's more of just a convenience of being able to get them in quickly rather than an advantage to get them in quickly. Your kind of thoughts on that mentality of, the possibility of ever bringing it? Did you think that holds water? Do you just feel like that opens the door up to people believing that somebody else has a bigger edge?
No, I mean, I think, there's always discussion about what features should we work on, shouldn't we work on. CSV upload is certainly, on there. We see user feedback. I always love to hear what people want and are requesting, and we absolutely take that to heart, and we discuss, internally where those rank in terms of priority, in terms of, what we're trying to gain from, making those decisions. For this one specifically, I think it's a little bit of both. I think adding a CSV upload will give an advantage to people who take advantage of it. In addition to making people who don't use it, feel like they are at a disadvantage, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it certainly does. Alex, you mentioned getting some momentum going into 2019, which is interesting because that's right around the corner, and we're kind of towards the end of NFL season, and especially, with your guys' product, you don't run the single day game. So, you're not, you're going to run the some playoff contests, but you're not going to be running, anything particular for the Super Bowl. So that means that there's got to be some commitment here towards, other sports like NBA and MLB and maybe even golf as well, which is something that you've added. And we're starting to see it with some NBA contests even just this week. What's the plan? What's the overlay plan, at least for the next week or so, regarding NBA, and what do you hope to do with that product?
Yeah, so I think for the next week at least, and through the end of the year, we'll run some larger NBA overlay contests. We got 100K with 25K of overlay Monday, Wednesday, Friday this week with $10 entry. Some feedback we heard internally around our $1 million baller. The entry was $20. Wanted to see that's still some people don't even play $20 for an entire NFL weekend. So with NBA, we're going to try out some $1 contest with same percentage of overlay, see how that does. And on the smaller slates on Tuesday and Thursday, we'll run same thing, a little bit smaller though. Leading up to this Sunday $1 million baller, and then we'll have a surprise on week 17 NFL. So looking forward to next year. We do, you mentioned we don't have the single slate. We will run contests through the playoffs. But it is a shift to NBA and golf. Golf starts at the top of the year. And, looking ahead to MLB, which I'm particularly excited for.
And on the playoff note, we do run a program we call Champ of Champs, so Champion of Champions. Basically, anybody who wins their season-long Yahoo Fantasy League gets invited to play in a private 3-week-long free roll. Essentially, anybody who's won the league gets to compete against everybody else who's also won their league. So you have a big DFS, 3-round free roll competing for money against all the other, fantasy football winners, which is great. We'll do a secondary league as well for people, anybody who didn't win. Also have an option for everybody who didn't win. And this kind of goes along with our, all season we're running Yahoo Cup across all sports now, where we give out money every week and then at a big prize at the end of the year for the cumulative winner. So for football, it's every Sunday through the regular season. NBA, MLB, soccer, golf. It's basically one round per week where we give out money every week to a winner, and then again a big prize at the end, and completely free to play.
Yeah, and if you are in a state that you can't play Yahoo, or in a country like Canada, can Canadians play in the Yahoo Cup?
Canadians can play in the Yahoo Cup outside of Quebec.
I think I called them Canada's. Hopefully nobody. Canadians.
They're forgiving. They're a forgiving bunch.
They are. They're the nicest people in the world. They probably laughed at that one. But yeah. So and I know people are like, Dan, ask him about Florida. I can't ask. These guys don't make that call. I know better. Okay, I know better than to put guys on the spot who would love to offer their product to as many people as they can, but this is above their pay grade. So unfortunately, we'll have to wait patiently for hopefully that day in the future. One thing that I did mention, I don't want it to be overlooked here, was your addition of golf this season, and I think you got rid of your season-long golf product. Is that right, Dan? So, is the only golf product you have the daily game on Yahoo?
That's right. So we did have a kind of a legacy golf game, which already kind of functioned as daily fantasy. I don't know if you played it, but you basically had different tiers, and you got to pick a few golfers from each tier, and you pick your golfers every week. So it was really kind of a really old version of daily fantasy, and we ended that platform about a year ago or so, and with the plan to rebuild it on the daily fantasy platform, and especially with our features like daily fantasy leagues, and you can do a private league. We were able to migrate a lot of those users over who had been using that classic game, that legacy game, and have them recreate their leagues on the daily fantasy platform, which made it more modern, salary cap instead of the tiers, and brought the mobile app version with it kind of for free, which is nice.
Yeah, excited to see what what kind of promotion you have around that when golf really gets moving. Dan, one more thing. People are always wanting to know kind of what's next, and I know that in doing this for the last 6-7 years, nobody likes to tell me anything before it actually exists. I'm going to see if you're going to actually kind of break that trend here. Give me a feature that, you don't have to give me a timetable when it might be launched, but something that you and your team are looking at, or a couple of things that you feel like you can do better at Yahoo that we have to maybe look forward to in terms of the daily fantasy product itself?
Yeah, so I think most of the enhancements that we're going to see in the beginning of next year are going to be in the mobile app. So right now, our web has been pretty well developed, and there are a few additional tweaks that we're making, some requests that are coming, especially as we have had all these new users come on. We're looking at that feedback, and there might be some enhancements to the web we can make. But when we look at the iOS and Android versions, there are some kind of basic functionality, basic features that we just haven't been able to add to the app yet. And so looking forward, I'm really excited about next year being able to add some of that back into the app. So something like, you can't batch create head-to-heads in the iOS app right now. You can't create a league, a multi-round league in the iOS app. A few different features like that. We were testing live projections. So live projected standings. So kind of like how we do with season long, where you can see if you play in Yahoo, you can see how your head-to-head matchup is doing, and we'll actually project the rest of it out. Right. And so we're trying to apply the same concept to daily fantasy. We had a few kind of issues that we've been working through, so we haven't turned that back on. But I imagine some of you guys probably have seen that kind of come and go as we've tested it out over the last kind of few months. And so hopefully we'll kind of iron out all the bugs there and get that working. So yeah, I'd say most of the kind of enhancements will be app related over the next few months.
And Dan, are you gonna let me exclude players from my player pool for a certain period of time so I can avoid Alex Len chalk night?
I'll build that just for you.
Just self-exclude.
Or what Alex really wants is for me to be able to let him hide certain lineups. So when he has like a dead lineup, he wants to not ever look at it again.
Yep.
That's one I'll think about.
Yeah, the player self-exclude button has been bandied about in daily fantasy circles for almost a decade now. We'll see if anybody actually comes up with this.
Just take the decision out of my hands.
Exactly. I am going to give you one bit of feedback though that I think would be good for you guys, especially I live in North Florida, so I don't get to play Yahoo that much. I made the trek up. I was in this past week, and I really got my first experience in sweating. And I think like your sweat experience on the site could probably, use some tinkering, because you can only kind of see one lineup at a time. It's kind of hard to see where all your lineups rank. So that's just one thing that a feedback I'm going to give you here on the podcast that I feel like you guys can probably do better than the current setup.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think we'll definitely take that back. Our main web front end engineer, he calls himself the GOAT. So shout out to the GOAT. Yeah, he's very, very modest guy. I ended up taking him down this past weekend in some of our head-to-heads. But yeah, I think he'll take that to heart, and he's very competitive, and we'll want to make sure we have the best experience possible.
Yeah, and I think, with what you talked about in terms of like projecting, like that's something that if you kind of overhauled the whole thing, you could have some fun with and build out something pretty cool that's really innovative that we haven't really seen in this space. If you haven't checked them out, make sure you do. RotoGrinders.com /Yahoo will get you to where you need to go. You can use the promo code Grinders30, and if you have not made a deposit on Yahoo, even if you've got an account but you haven't made a deposit, you use that deposit bonus, you should get $30 matching bonus over there on Yahoo. And, on top of, the overlay, and again, $250K again happening this week. If you're not familiar with that term, that basically means they're only taking enough entries for $750,000, but paying out $1 million. So $250,000 out of their pocket. Alex, you guys also have like other rake-free contests anyway, correct? Like almost on a daily basis?
Yeah, I mean, you talking about quick match?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So this is a great idea that, Dan came up with, or Dan's team came up with, where we will match you with an equally skilled player for a rake-free head-to-head at 4 different entry levels, once each slate. So, if you're a new player or you're just getting started and, want to play head-to-heads, you're not going to get stuck playing against the GOAT, who I also beat this weekend. But it's a great way to learn, and a lot of my friends from college and, whatever, they really love it because it lets them get, a little bit of exposure, every night in NBA, but they don't have to dig through, tournaments or, trying to pick up head-to-heads. They just get placed with someone that's, equally skilled as them. And we have a ranking system that, I think it's basically based on the average of your scores against the standard deviation of the average scores, or something much more complicated than I understand.
That's a pretty good explanation. And the only added feature is we actually guarantee it for a main slate. So if we're not able to match you in a main slate against somebody, meaning we didn't have enough users or it came in too late, we guarantee it, and so that's a free win.
Oh, wow. You guys just love giving away free money over at Yahoo, apparently. That's what I've learned here during this phone call. But you guys, I'm excited to kind of see you guys, definitely move more towards the acquisition side of players, and excited to see what other rollouts you have. And thanks so much for, doing this. This is something that we don't see in the industry any longer. And for you guys to be like, you know what, here we go. We're going to do it. We're going to do it for multiple weeks. It's awfully impressive. So as a player, especially in a day where, rake is going up, not down, much appreciated, and look forward to more of the good stuff you guys have happening over at Yahoo Daily Fantasy. Thanks a lot, fellas. All right, big thanks to the guys over at Yahoo breaking down exactly what is going on, and of course, this amazing overlay opportunity. I can't speak enough of it in terms of why you need to play. I mean, just, the opportunity, the cash lines move so much higher in your favor when you've got this kind of overlay. So what I thought I'd do today is break down the NFL slate. Again, it's still a little bit early in the week for us, but thought I'd bring on a special guest. You might have seen him on RotoGrinders talking some MMA, but I had a chance to catch up with him over at the King of the Beach, and looking at his resume, honestly, like one of the most well-rounded grinders and up-and-coming players we've got in DFS. His name is Mike Brown. You might know him as H3 Buddha. Is that right?
Buddha, yes, it is. The origins of the screen name is simple. I wanted an H3 Hummer when I was younger, and I think I was staring at a Buddha statue when I made the name. I remember making it back in the poker days, Dan, and it just stuck. But yeah, it was awesome to meet you down in King of the Beach. You made me feel great down there. I've been putting in a lot of hard work, and sometimes you don't get seen. Like, I really am the definition of RotoGrinders, right? I started from just myself, doing what I do, using the website, putting in the hard work. And, in the last 2 years, I've really seen some great success. And, I attributed a lot to the site, and, everybody is pulling for each other. I think that's the best thing. You and I never met in person, but I know you're rooting for me in the background, and that feels great.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's kind of what community in RG has kind of been about in the beginning. And sometimes it feels like it's gone away just in terms of when the site scales and DFS scales. It's harder to kind of necessarily always have that sense of community, but it's great to hear stories like this, and I love kind of giving you guys opportunities to showcase yourself as well and help us out with some content. So what we're going to do is we're going to look to week 16 here on Yahoo. We're going to keep this analysis specific to Yahoo. And as our boy Dean78904 says, if you're going to play between $20 and $200 this week, it should be on Yahoo. No question about it, based on the value you're getting in this 10 entry max $1 million guaranteed tournament. So let's start the breakdown, Mike, and we're just going to take it position by position and talk through things and try to help the listeners a little bit in terms of recognize some value in the builds of their own lineups. And we'll start at quarterback this week. And the one thing that I'm looking at, this week is a lot of teams have completely packed it in. We're starting to see teams just give up. We're starting to see marquee players like, I believe, Aaron Rodgers this week, and maybe even potentially Cam Newton might not even play because they've got nothing to play for. And, if you're banged up, why send them out there? So, I think there's going to be value opportunities in places, but I don't know if quarterback's a spot. Like, I love paying down, especially because, you've got some smash spots for guys like McCaffrey and Barkley and Zeke, but I'm not sure I'm recognizing like a min salary crapper that I'm particularly excited to play. So that's my early kind of look kind of at the quarterback position in terms of just the overarching feeling of the position. What about yourself?
Yeah, it sounds like the same thing to me. I typically like to pay down a quarterback when I can. But with this particular, so late in the season here, I'm wondering, are we going to have to pay for some type of floor? But at the same token, we're trying to win this Yahoo tournament, right? Mincast is great. I think last week I got 8 of my 10 through, but it's more about you want to get in the top, what is it, top 10 there, so you're looking for plays that are going to be off the wall. Initially, I think people are going to be drawn to bigger names. I think the pool of players in this one are going to look for name brands. Last week it looked like higher ownership on names over maybe quality players. What did you see last week, though, when it came to that? Because I think ownership is going to be important in a tournament like this, especially at quarterback. But quarterback, not a lot separates the best from the worst. So like you said, I too like to look at value very much. And there's a few that popped off right away to me this week. And it's funny enough, Sam Darnold is popping very high for me already. I know that he's going against Green Bay, I believe the 30th ranked defense, $22. I think he gives you a very minimal running upside, but he does give you the passing yards. What's your thoughts on Darnold?
Yeah, I don't think he's terrible. I mean, this total actually comes in a little bit higher than I expected. We don't have a true line on this one. Initially, I think it kind of came out as like the Jets -1 or 1.5, which clearly makes you think Aaron Rodgers isn't going to play in this one. But I think that's accounted for here in this over under 44. And I would have thought you take Aaron Rodgers out and DeShone Kizer at quarterback versus the Jets, you might even have something sitting at like a 41. So the fact that it checks in at a 44, I think, does make it interesting. And you're right. This is a perfect situation where you've got Green Bay officially eliminated, from the playoffs. We talked about teams that are kind of tanking. The Jets, they've been out of it for a while. But Sam Darnold, I mean, you start hearing some of the naysayers, is this guy good? I mean, he's got kind of a lot to still play for. Yeah. And I can buy it. The problem is, like, I am not like a Robbie Anderson guy at all. I mean, he was great last week, but naturally in these tournaments, you want to pair your quarterback up with somebody. And I question whether or not, like, there is that pass catcher that we can play with Sam Darnold. And you don't have to per se, but, in game theory and lineup, building, it makes the most sense to be doing that. And that's my only really hesitation there, because you're right. The price is fantastic.
That's really what drives me is the price for him. That's my thinking. I look at point per dollar. That's what I'm kind of built on. And that was one of the first ones that popped as just kind of an outlier to the field when it comes to point per dollar. Yeah, I agree. For his pass catchers, that might be difficult.
Because you can ask yourself this, and again, I don't really want to do it because Minnesota's pretty good, but at least they are at home, and you can get Stafford at 21, and $1 less than Barkley, and he's got an alpha wide receiver in Kenny Golladay that has immense upside. So, like, I think that more people will probably go to that combination naturally because you feel better when you click that wide receiver quarterback combo than you do Sam Darnold and Chris Herndon or Robbie Anderson or somebody like that. Not to say those guys can't do it, but just when you got 10 lineups, and that's what makes Yahoo tricky here, Mike, and is you can't say, well, I got 99 other lineups or 149 other lineups. Like, I can do this thing. No, you've got to be almost, you don't have to be more conservative, but I think naturally people are because they just can't spread out their exposures all over the place.
Yeah, I would run definitely a tighter core with some iterations or some GPP plays mixed in that are, really off the wall plays. But Stafford was another one also that was up there as well. I agree with that play. And it seems like there's that $22 to $21 that, you even have somebody like Jeff Driscoll, who I'm sure people are still going to click on. I don't know why, but it's scary. Against Cleveland, does that interest you at all? Because it's a pivot off of Stafford. It's a pivot off of Darnold.
I don't think so.
I don't think.
He didn't do it last week at home versus Oakland. Not that Cleveland is a much better defense, but on the road in this situation, he threw for 130 yards that day.
Oh, it was not good.
And they scored 30 points. And, so if he didn't get there last week, I can't envision him being a GPP winner on this slate. So I'd probably rather go with Darnold or Stafford on the cheap side of things if I'm going to go in this range.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, and that's really where I start is that value, guys. Should we move on to maybe a higher end one? Because I think I definitely think that Andrew Luck is going to see some love here at 31. He's probably, I would say, the safer play out of all of these guys up here. Dak burnt us at 32 last week. Luck is just doing it all this year again. He's really back. I definitely like him at 31. He's got people to pair with, like as you were saying. I don't believe they have much to play for. I don't think they are playing for much.
Who's that? The Giants? Or Indianapolis is playing for playoffs. They still got they're in the thick of it here. So
Yep, I'm pulling it up on the side here, and there you go. There's a great narrative to run with. He's going to be trying to keep the score high. I think it's a good play for Luck as always. Ownership's going to come down really important in this. You'd agree, right? It's trying to figure out ownership. What's your opinion on ownerships? I'm not 100% sure what your idea is on it.
Yeah, and it's a little bit early in the week. I don't think Jamino's kind of come out with his first iteration. I think people are going to pay up for like Ben and even guys like Breeze, as bad as he's been lately. I think they're going to go to that game and be like, okay, we didn't get the shootout last week, but this is an indoor spot where, both of these quarterbacks can absolutely – this can turn into the shootout that people thought we were going to see with the New England game last
Patriots,
week.
Yep.
Yeah, with the Patriots last week, which was a letdown. But, man, I think a lot of people are going to go there because I think it's like the safe, confident play. But as I talked about in terms of, the actual build itself, let's say you throw Ben in there, that leaves you $20 per position. And if you wanted to play Elliott, who I think is just a lock this week versus Tampa, and you wanted to play Barkley, that leaves you at 15 per position. Now, there is some value out there to make that work, but you're not going to be able to really pair up Antonio Brown or Juju Smith-Schuster and get those stud running backs. So I think it's kind of an exercise in lineup building here to
I agree.
See what's going to work best. And, do people want to play Ben on an island by himself? Probably not. Do you want to fade Ezekiel Elliott and Saquon Barkley? I wouldn't really recommend it this week. So it makes it a real challenge. And yeah, so but I still think ultimately people will want to click that Ben button this week.
Yeah. And again, it makes sense 100% at New Orleans indoors. That total makes sense as well at 56. I think it is the highest. So people are going to want to get either side of the ball in that one. I'd love to hear your take on Mahomes because I think he is going to be the late hammer here, right? We saw it at King of the Beach. The Kansas City offense is just explosive. At any time they can go off. That total there is about, 54-ish right now. And I think he can still do stuff against Seattle. I don't think there's any concern. At 38, like you said, it doesn't allow you a lot building, but you are getting points. You're probably locking in one of the highest ceilings, right?
Oh, no doubt. Probably the highest ceiling out of any player. But I just worry about, do I want to take a quarterback against Seattle who wants to shorten the game, that wants to run clock? It's kind of like that situation you saw a little bit with even Dallas last week. Like Andrew Luck didn't smash against Dallas. That's, even though they, Dallas, didn't play well. He didn't score a single point, but ultimately, Seattle doesn't want to drop back and throw the ball, 40 times if they don't have to. So Seattle's a tough spot to play. I think I'd rather click Roethlisberger if I'm going to pick one of those two. And that's just my personal opinion. But I'll tell you the guy that I think we need to talk about here, who's going to be extremely overlooked and might even, especially looking at his salaries, this is the cheapest number he's been literally since week 4 against Minnesota. And this is Jared Goff over at $30. And he was 34 last week, got all the way up to 37 a few weeks ago. And let me just tell you this. The guy has thrown 1 touchdown pass over the last 3 games. That trend is going to end, okay? Like, that is not going to continue. And I don't see a much better spot for it to happen than against an Arizona team, which is just dreadful. We saw Matt Ryan rip them apart last week. And I don't think Todd Gurley is healthy. I think there's a chance that even if he plays, they're not going to play him the same level of snaps that they do on a typical Sunday. Because, this is Sean McVay. Remember, week 17, he sat everybody. When the game didn't matter. So, in theory, if they're up 3 touchdowns in the first half, are you going to come back with more Todd Gurley? I don't know that you do. I think Goff at 30 is needs to have a good game here before the playoffs, and this seems to be the spot for it to happen. So, he's probably my next kind of favorite guy in this $30 tier.
I agree 100%. The $30, when I saw it, I thought, wow, it is the lowest, like you said, that he's been all year too, or, maybe 1 or 2, like you said, against Minnesota. I like the price. I think, like you said, that Gurley situation, which we'll probably just touch on again, is scary. I think he's going to have the ball in his hands. I like the play very much. What's the total in that game? It's about 47.5 there. It's not bad, 46-ish. I like it.
Highest applied team total on the slate, 29.5 or 29.5. So
yeah, I can't go wrong with that price, right?
Yeah, no, I know it's early in the week, but I'm surprised we don't have him tagged right now. In our lineup HQ on Yahoo, because he feels like a complete smash.
There's one guy against my New England Patriots.
Don't do it.
Well, how can you not?
You're on team Josh Allen.
I think I'm buying into the hype, Dan. He's putting up points. The last what do we have? 20 points, 30 in the last 3. Against New England, I watch all the Patriots games. I've been to a bunch as well. They're just not as good against the run. And quarterbacks, they haven't been able to really contain them as far as I've seen. So you're not on Josh Allen then?
No, 0. He was a rush. He got a rushing touchdown last week, so it kind of, quote unquote, got him there. But he ran for 16 yards and threw for 204 and won. Like that for $28 when you can get Goff for $2 more. Like,
I think I'm buying the touchdown equity. I think that's what I like out of it. Personally, I think he could, throw for 1, rush for 1, even throw for 2 against New England. I'm interested. You probably would just run Allen by himself. I don't know if you would even need to pair him with anybody, but like you said, tournament wise, you're going to want to in this tournament. So
yeah, I like Robert Foster. Like, I think he's a pretty good player. Like, you look at what he's done since Benjamin's left. Like, he's been good, like 4 out of 5 games or whatever it is, 3 out of 4. Like, he has been really, really good. So I think like legit target for him. but I'm just not convinced that he's a good passer. I mean, 13 for 26, 18 for 36, 18 for 33. I mean, Belichick will probably look at it and say, okay, what's the biggest weapon Buffalo has right now? And it's Josh Allen's legs. Let's take that away, and we should be able to beat this team. And basically, his protege did that last week. Outside of that, just I don't say fluky, because I do agree there is equity with the touchdown rushes with him. But, those 3 games prior to this one, I think it was phony baloney. I mean, 101, 135, and 99. People who are chasing that, I think. So, I mean, and the thing is, if he's like 22, you can make the argument. But I just touched on it. Like, do we want to just not spend $2 more on Goff or $3 more on Luck? I think you do. So,
dare I say, even pay down to 25 at Eli indoors. I mean,
now we're getting crazy.
Yeah, I know. I joke. I mean, that is an interesting one, though, at the $28 range. Like you said, that's kind of falls in no man's land, right? People are going to go all the way up probably, or all the way down. Anyone else really catch your eye? Because early in the week here, I
want to be a Kirk Cousins believer. I really do. But it's hard to do it right now. I mean, man, I thought last week it was going to happen. They got off to that huge lead. It looked like they were just going to crush them. And, and I think 215 yards, 21 pass attempts last week versus Miami. I mean, I think a lot of that was situational, where they got up to such a big lead and Dalvin Cook was just running like crazy, where they didn't need to pass it. But I do believe he's still got 300-yard games and 3 touchdown games in him. But man, you got to have a short memory to press that button, because he screwed me in a lot of teams last week.
Absolutely. And I mean, that one could get out of hand as well, too, from Minnesota. So that's something that scares me off a little bit. I'll mention one other name. What about Mitchell Trubisky? He's kind of the definition of GPP play lately. I just don't know if I could pull the trigger, but I do think he's got upside. Let's see the logs here. He's got 19, 7, 16, but he does have the crazy upside of 36. Do you think he can pass for 2 or 3 touchdowns here and get us some points? Or do you think against San Francisco it's just going to get out of hand in their same type of deal to just run the ball?
Yeah, I think it's just an uglier game for me. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I mean, Trubisky's won people multiple millions of dollars this year.
That's the narrative, right?
So I get that side of things, but I don't know if this is the spot. It's hard for me to click a Chicago, outside of Tariq Cohen, it's hard for me to press a Chicago player on a full slate like this. Weeks ago where we've got, less games to worry about, but especially here where we got even Sunday night on Yahoo.
Yeah.
I'm probably not doing it. So.
I know. I love the Sunday night game too. It adds so much more. It reminds me of the old games we used to play. So I think Yahoo's doing it great, having that hammer game on Monday night.
No doubt. All right, let's go to running back next. And let's touch on Todd Gurley here. I mean, he's $40, and it's an Arizona defense, which is just dreadful versus the run. I mean, Tevin Coleman nearly it felt like 300 yards rushing last week if it wasn't for some penalties. But, we've got the questionable tag, and I watched that game last week, and I felt like watching even the first half, I was like, watching the dude run, I was like, man, he's limping. He was not even running right. And then lo and behold, coming out of halftime, he's got that wrap on his leg. And the guy is just so valuable to this team that I don't know that they're going to want to risk it. So I think he's a fade if he's in. So personally, I think it's just too much at $40. But I think the larger question is, do we take a chance on a mid-salary, maybe John Kelly here if Gurley is ruled out this week?
I mean, it would make a lot of sense. I believe I love taking running backs in big favorite spots. For instance, minus 13.5 now. John Kelly is in a good spot to get points for us, at least carries. And I saw that they signed C.J. Anderson. Is that correct?
Did that happen? Wow. Like I didn't.
So the Rams signed C.J. Anderson from the grave, I think, actually.
This is like his fourth team that he's had a chance to catch on with here.
Yeah.
He signed with the Chiefs or got a tryout with the Chiefs and didn't make it after the whole Kareem Hunt deal.
It could be a messy situation. I mean, he would play, right? If he is signed, he can play this week. Is that correct? So,
yeah.
So I mean, it adds a little bit another layer. But John Kelly, yeah, I think you'd have to monitor things. It's again for me, it's a little bit too early in the week, but I think up top you really have a clear-cut number one, and then McCaffrey is so interesting. I think Elliott is in such a hammer spot, like you mentioned earlier. I'm not going to be all in, but I'll be doing the 10 lineups. I'll be pretty heavily committed to Elliott, but I definitely on the ones that I may fade Elliott, I might put CMC. We know what the Atlanta defense has given up this year, the worst ranked against running. I just feel like it's a spot where CMC can go bonkers, especially because what we saw from Cam last week.
Yeah, he can't throw. The little dump offs to McCaffrey are what he feels good about doing right now. And I think the only thing about McCaffrey for us to monitor is the Cam situation. I mean, this line is off right now. I don't see a total or a spread on this game, at the moment. Or Carolina minus 2.5, I guess, is the number I've got right now. So, I mean, Cam will probably play, but I just wonder about motivation in this game. And not that changes anything for McCaffrey, but there's so many running backs here because Barkley and Elliott are just fine. Like Barkley last week got a ton of targets, just didn't convert. I think it was kind of fluky that he kind of had as bad of a game. The weather was a mess. And let's face it, Tennessee just kind of grinds it out where, Indy won't do that. They play with pace. So, this is a fine spot for him. Nick Chubb versus the Cincinnati defense, he should run for easily over 100 yards, but he's 32. Like, that's an expensive number. So
it's expensive for him, very expensive. Yeah. And it's like people are going to gravitate towards the upper top, McCaffrey, Barkley, Elliott, instead of clicking on Chubb. I was actually on Chubb just the same as you. I think he's interesting, but you're paying up for him. I mean, I like to save when I can, take the value where it is at running back, and then I'm Team Jam Men typically. I think there's a lot of value that you can touch on we'll probably touch on in a few minutes, but up top too. I know Joe Mixon's been popular. I don't think I'd go there. Kamara, as always.
Especially after getting the old Pro Bowl snub. On Twitter he came out with the laughing emojis. So you got a little narrative there.
Oh, I didn't even see that, but it makes sense. As big of a monster as he was earlier in the year, I would say he's kind of obviously cooled off, but he can go nuts at any time. We all know that. The half-point PPR doesn't concern me at all. He's still going to get you points. So I like Kamara, but what about Dalvin Cook? I think he's going to be very popular in this tournament at $23, coming off of last week's big game. Against Detroit, it does scare me a bit.
Yeah, he's not a lock and load for me.
No.
But, I think he's in play just based on, they won easily last week. The game plan was to run the football, and he was successful. So I'm more the line of thinking, like, why would they go and change that? Detroit's been pretty good after the Snacks Harrison trade, but they also lost, I think, like Ziggy Ansah this week and another D lineman. So, like, they're kind of thin anyway. And I'm okay with it, but it's like, because he is a big savings off of Elliott and Barkley and McCaffrey, and he, we saw last week he can get there.
Yes, he
can. But it's also like last week, really, man, that game flow was like perfect for him. I mean, they got to the lead, they could run it, and we even saw though Latavius Murray was not like non-existent. Like he scored a touchdown.
He's back in there. Yeah, he's in the fold again there, which is a little bit concerning. And even that game is a 43 over under or 43 and a half, which is concerning. As 5.5 point favorites, if he were the only back there, I'd probably really be interested in him. In this range, again, you have Johnson, DJ, and Jordan Howard. Connor is still questionable. Do you think he plays? I mean, that's important news, right? I mean,
huge.
I mean, that's probably
Samuels
the biggest one.
Is a free square. He's $14 again on Yahoo. Like some of the other sites really priced him up, so it's a decision to make. But on Yahoo, it comes down to if he plays, you pretty much have to play him at $14. So.
Exactly. And do you think the questionable tag will hold people off of Connor if he is active? I mean, we have late swap, right, for 425, so we're going to have time before lock to see if he's going to play or not. And again, that game total is really nice at 56, so I definitely want a piece of the game, and we know what Connor can do. Indoors as well, like you said. I'm interested. Like you said, Samuel, same thing. You're going to have to probably lock on load if O'Connor is inactive. I never thought we were going to see Chris Carson at $21, though. I mean, that's crazy down there here.
But how crazy is it coming off of a back-to-back 22 carry games, 6 receptions last week too, which is really encouraging. And, Kansas City is not particularly great on defense in their own right here. So, like,
absolutely,
I don't think it's crazy. I mean, there's just so many good running back plays. Like, you're using your flex position in running back this week. We haven't even touched on the value yet. And there's a heap of it. So.
And running backs, there's plenty of value. And again, he is getting carries, 22 carries for Carson there. So it's intriguing. I guess let's just jump to value. I mean, I think you have to immediately go to Jamal Williams, right? I don't like rostering Jamal Williams, but with Aaron Jones no longer in the fold, it makes sense, right? He's probably going to be owned $14 here on Yahoo against the Jets as 3-point favorites. It's not the best situation, but or actually, no, it's a pick 'em now, right? Oh.
Yeah, I will pass on Jamal Williams this week. I will gladly pass on Jamal Williams. Yes, it's the Jets, but it's a Packers team, probably with Deshaun Kaiser at quarterback, and I don't.
Wouldn't that boost Jamal?
He's not good. Not good. They're not a running team anyway. I mean, like, this team is nothing to play for, and. Like, I guess in theory it should help him, but like, I don't think he's a good running back. So
yeah, it's not going to matter.
Like, you want opportunity, he's going to get it, but why not take Tevin Coleman with no Ito this week? He is on the IR at the same price. So, I think I like him a little more indoors. This game is at Carolina, but yeah, $14, he stands out for a play for me. I'd almost rather go on the opposite side and take a look at Elijah McGuire, who got 18 carries last week, 3 receptions, found the end zone now in back-to-back weeks. And especially like a spot where like it's going to be competitive, they're going to score some points. McGuire might not be the worst play. He's a little bit more expensive at that $16 number. So I get the people who are like, I can go up a little bit more and get a bigger name. But, I think he's the running back right now for the Jets, no question.
Oh, he's most certainly more talented than Jamal Williams, like you said. And Coleman was the other one I was going to mention as well. I think that's a misprice at $14 here on Yahoo. Same type of range. I have a couple more names, $12. Jeff Wilson. Dare I say Kenyon Drake? You're not a Kenyon Drake guy, are you?
I mean,
you want to win it, right?
I want to be, but unfortunately, Balaj went for like a 76-yard run last week, and I think they're going to give him more touches this week. I mean, he went 12 for 123, and you could say, well, 76 of that came in one carry, but still, like 11 for 70 or whatever the math comes out to, or 60. It's not bad. Like 6 yards per carry. So against Jacksonville, like I think Balaj is still going to be in line with a ton of carries in that game. So I'm not in love with it.
Yeah. And Jeff Wilson are you on board with him? No.
Against Chicago, I'm not messing with it. No.
Let's see. What else do we have? There's plenty of value.
Yeah, here's one more situation that could prop up is the Jags just kind of shut Fournette down and say we're playing for nothing. And then you've got maybe TJ Yeldon at $11 versus Miami, who we saw last week. They can't stop the run. I mean, Dalvin Cook and Latavius Murray just ran all over that team. So you could have some opportunity in Jacksonville running backs if Fournette sits. I don't trust Fournette to play at all. So,
me too.
So
I know a lot of people that have been hurt by him season long. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he does sit. One news that broke before we hopped on here was the carry-on is out. So that's obviously you've got Riddick and Blunt. Obviously don't touch Blunt. Riddick interest at $11 here against Minnesota. 40. It's not the best total, but we know what Riddick can do.
Yeah, if it was full point PPR, I'd do it. But he ran the ball pretty well last week, 8 for 47. And I think he does have more receiving equity than we even saw last week, especially with Ellington out. I think he's like a flyer. I'd probably rather play him on full point PPR site, but nobody's going to play him on a 10 entry max. He's going to be very low owned. So maybe if you want to run that quarterback wide receiver stack on Minnesota and run it back something that's
what I was thinking
where it works.
Yeah, that's probably about it. But again, monitor the different things. I think that, it's so early in the week, things are going to pop up here that we can get, a little bit of an edge later in the week.
All right, let's get to wide receiver next. And, it feels like a pay down week at this position, again, because of the running backs and the high end of things that look really, really good. So, where do we start? On lineup HQ, the double tag that we have early on is Josh Reynolds for $12 against Arizona. And, you can get a Josh Reynolds, Jared Goff, combo there for the grand total of $42 on Yahoo. That's less than Todd Gurley, or about the same as Todd Gurley in his own right. So I think Reynolds might end up being chalk at that price and probably okay eating it.
Yeah, and add in there the Gurley situation. They're going to want to move the ball. I like Josh Reynolds for $12. I saw that he was tagged up on there, and he does pop on a lot of my models as well. Speaking of $12, I dare I say Chris Godwin. I don't know. I think he makes sense. I don't think I'd pair him with Jameis or anything crazy like that, but he's.
The ownership's not going to be there after scoring, under 2 fantasy points the last 2 weeks. But I think
bounce back spot.
It does kind of feel like a little bit of a bounce back spot here against Dallas. That was a tough matchup a week ago. I can get behind that. I don't hate it for $12 flyer. Some other cheapies for us. Galladay's back at 16. I don't have a problem with that. The frustrating thing is, when I played him the 2 previous weeks, he did nothing, and then didn't play him last week. And, he converted a ton. The targets were pretty much in line, with the 8 that he's seen, the 2 or the 3 games before then, but he actually converted those, to big plays. So he feels too cheap on Yahoo at 16. And Josh Gordon too, against Buffalo here, $14 is his price. I don't hate that number. We just saw a big play guy in Kenny Golladay go downfield and put together a big game. He was, right around double digits in pretty much 5 consecutive starts before then. So I feel like he's a little too cheap. Maybe.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, it seems like you could definitely pay down here at wide receiver here and maybe get one big name in. So roster construction is going to be important for this particular tournament, and paying down or getting a pivot off of some of these guys that are going to be higher owned, like the Josh Reynolds, is going to be important. Any love for Dede? I mean, you're the Jags guy, right? I
don't think so. It's hard. I mean, he got there on a kick return, I mean, and
which is luck.
Yeah, it's pretty lucky. But I mean, he gets some red zone targets or whatnot. But I don't think I'll be pressing that number. I mean, no.
I get it. I get it 100%. Higher end, what about Michael Thomas? Just seems to be the guy to go to, right? I mean, he's our best one on the slate, I'd imagine.
I mean, I feel like, he and Hopkins are in really good spots here for, a little bit cheaper price than you get on Antonio Brown and Julio Jones. Adam Thielen's another one. I mean, God, is he – what happened here? You went from –
I had him on here.
Yeah, I mean, he's been one of the best receivers all year long, and now he can't do anything. And it's a matchup versus Detroit where he went 4 for 22 just the last time they played. So, man, the price way down on him, 28. Yeah. Man, that's way down from where he was, I think, last week when he was the highest priced wide receiver on the slate. So.
Yeah, and he's been as high as $38 here on Yahoo too. I remember even considering playing him at the 38, 39s because, like you said, he's been a monster, but he's kind of just disappeared. And it always is concerning when you have the two real talented guys like with Diggs there and Thielen, because you never know which one is going to get the hot hand. Last week, I know that Juju was a big play. I had him everywhere, and he put up the 6 fantasy points with the 4 receptions. He's getting the targets still, Dan. Any interest in it? 10 targets, 12 targets, 9, 17. We're getting targets, $31 here on Yahoo. Any interest?
Yeah, I mean, that game is the game to stack. So, on that front. But
of course.
Brown is like $1 more. I mean, I said it last week on Ownership Report. I'm not buying this narrative that Juju has replaced Antonio Brown. I think a lot of this is kind of coverage schemes, and who knows what New Orleans is going to do here. I don't think it's a given that Juju just outperforms Antonio Brown. He didn't last week. So I pretty much split exposure of those guys if I'm, playing Ben and feel like you need to run back some stuff there. But
what about
But I like Thomas better for cheaper than those guys.
Me too. I'm equally as high on Thomas as you are. What about Odell? You think he plays? Do you think it adds another layer that Shepard will be a value again if he doesn't? What are your thoughts on that? Because I think Shepard is obviously a play if he's out.
I like Shepard again.
Price.
I mean, if Noah OBJ got 9
Regardless.
targets last week and just 9 targets in crappy weather,
now indoors
there, and now it's Indianapolis indoors. I feel like, people will get – this is a perfect example of a guy who did not come through for you. You don't play him, and then the following week he smashes. So I'm fine going back to Sterling Shepard if OBJ sits, which I kind of expect him to. So
me as well. That's why I mentioned it. I think that's going to be one to monitor when it comes to wide receiver. How about no more high dollar wide receivers for you? I mean, I like you said, Hopkins. You mentioned Cooper's gonna probably come in low. I'd imagine, but we know what he could do against Tampa Bay, right? I mean, crappy defense. I don't know if I trust that.
$6 after, going 4 for 32 last week. So, their algorithm thinks he's due to have a big game, and I get it. It's just his whole season has been big games or average games. So, this is more of a tournament podcast, so that fits the narrative of what we're doing. But it's hard to press him when you can get, equally as dominant guys, I think, at similar price points. Let's move down a little bit because there's one guy that's kind of standing out here after his game a week ago, and Doug Baldwin, $18 here against Kansas City. This could be a more of a shootout type game. He's got 4 touchdowns over the last 4 weeks. and under $20 there. So he's the guy they still like to go to. I mean, Lockett is great and David Moore is nice, but Baldwin is their money guy when it comes down to it, and they might need to score in this Sunday night one. So don't mind him.
Yeah, nice to have 2 touchdowns last week, touchdown in the week before. So obviously they're looking to get him the ball too. One other guy I was looking at right there, Alshon Jeffrey. It looks like he's just getting the targets with Foles there. He's the guy he likes to go to. What are your thoughts on that? I think $17 here. He's got the tournament upside that we want, that's for sure. Against Houston, not the best, but targets could be up.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I think he's fine if you land in that range. I'm not like, he's not the first guy I'm putting into my lineup, but, because there's still a lot of pieces out there that they can go to, especially in that passing game. So, but clearly Foles likes him. That's very clear from the last couple of years. So I don't mind him. Let me see if there's one more name here. I mentioned him earlier. Robert Foster still has not gone up, and he's gone 108, 104, 94, and 105. Those are 4 of his last 5 games. He's the downfield threat, and sometimes things stand out and you feel like it's an anomaly, but you can completely look at his production post Kelvin Benjamin departure, and it fits.
Apparent.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he shouldn't be $14 or $13. He should probably be like 17, 18, 19.
Yep.
So you're getting really good bang for your buck in a game. They're probably going to be trailing. They're going to probably need to throw. And I'll be surprised if he doesn't kind of become one of the more popular options.
Yeah, I love the price, like you said. He's got, the little chart here on Yahoo, the little chart with the games. Yeah. That chart is going straight up, baby.
Yeah, it is. I kind of like it. It's like the stock market chart they got next to him. Yeah.
It is. It's awesome. And again, I don't think you're relying on touchdown or anything like that. I think he's going to get the targets that you want. They'll potentially be playing from behind as 12 and a half, 13-point dogs here. Yeah, I like the Foster play.
All right, let's get to tight end. And last week was a dumpster fire at this position. And I don't think that's going to happen 2 weeks in a row. The likelihood that Kelsey, Kittle, Ertz, Ebron, Gronk all crap the bed 2 weeks in a row is not particularly likely. So if you had to take 1 or 2 of the top 5, who you got?
I probably have to go back to Kelsey. It just makes logical sense here against Seattle. I'm hoping maybe people get scared off by that, but the 54 total is really intriguing to me. I mean, what you're getting out of Kelsey now. $28 though. I mean, I think you can afford it. Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And like you were saying, it's about the roster build. I just don't know if I could go down. Like, people got burned by Ebron last week. He was the most expensive on the slate, I believe, and probably the most high owned, I believe. He didn't do anything. 1.3 points. You saw just 3 targets there. That scares me. Kittle is just going to be up and down here. I mean, he got the 8 targets last week, coming off that huge week before that. His price has actually gone up $6 coming into the game against Chicago. So I don't know if I necessarily go against that defense. Would you?
I don't know if I want to, but I think some of his numbers last week were misleading. I watched the game, and Mullins missed him on like a 60-yard wide. I mean, it was a touchdown. There's nobody near him, and he just overthrew him. And if you add 60 yards and a touchdown, you're looking at, over 100 yards receiving back-to-back weeks, multiple touchdowns. I wish he was a tad bit cheaper. But I think, he is just their guy. They just love getting him involved. So I don't have a problem kind of going to Kittle here because I think he's so established. And, Chicago is a tough team. And it doesn't make sense to pay up against tough teams. But, in this tournament, I don't mind it if you can get him. Because I think most people will be like, if I'm spending 26, I'll go to 28 to get Kelsey.
Yeah.
And I can get him at 2/3 less the ownership, I'll do that in this tournament. Okay, let's move down a little bit. I think Evan Ingram, I talked about a little bit last week, and he got 12 targets. And, there's definitely a correlation between him being targeted and OBJ not being on the field. So I think it's completely dependent on that Beckham news. But if he is out at $15, I think we can go back there against Indianapolis.
Absolutely. Makes sense. The price has gone up again. It's one of those situations, like you said, they're expecting him to probably be out with the algorithm because he went up $4 rather, last week. I like this range here in this like 15 to even $12. I don't think people are going to end up in this range personally. And Njoku here is $14. He's kind of seen a fall off. So I don't think I'd go there. Brait's been frustrating, but we know what his upside is. He's kind of touchdown dependent, though, isn't he? Which is concerning against Dallas. Burton, he's been popular. Tight end is just such a frustrating position, isn't it?
It is. It's nothing that makes you feel particularly great. If you need a $10 crapper,
I got two names. Okay, Three names for
I got one right now. CJ Uzomah against Cleveland. He got 5 targets last week, a couple in the red zone. They weren't quality targets because Jeff Driscoll is not a good quarterback. But I think he's got some touchdown equity, and that's saying something considering he's only got 2 touchdowns this year. But I don't hate Uzomah against Cleveland for $10. So there's one name. Who are yours?
Yeah, he was one of the 3 names I was going to mention. This $10 range is just all about, I'm a believer if you're punting here, if they get a few targets for min salary, you're going to be happy. But I do like Vance McDonald and Herndon here, Chris Herndon. I mean, I don't love them by any means, but Herndon gives you some targets here, min salary. He's been getting 4, 2, 6, and 8 in the last couple. He was priced up. He's actually priced down a little bit here at $10. And we have Vance coming in at 10, and he's in the same boat here, 3 targets, 4 targets, 7 targets. So at least you could potentially get something out of these guys punting at $10. Any interest in those 2 guys?
Yeah, Vance, he had a touchdown last game, and he should have had a second. And he's been a $15 player the last 4 weeks, and suddenly he's down to 10. So I think there's big value there. Like, I don't know why they suddenly dropped him like that. He might end up being major chalk in this tournament if people are going to pay for the running backs, because it feels like, especially after last week, people are going to be lukewarm to be paying up for tight ends. I guarantee you
Absolutely.
that. So, but I like it. It makes sense. If you want more off the radar a little bit, go to the Cowboys. Blake Jarwin against Tampa Bay again. Certainly could have some points in that game. And he's had 7 targets each of the last 2 weeks, no touchdowns to show for it. But, if he gets in the end zone with 45 and 56 yards like we've seen each of the last 2 weeks, that's a pretty good spot. Now, here's the problem you run into is they were trailing against Indy. They had that, back and forth game against Philly. Those were 2 really ideal kind of game flows. And it's far from a guarantee we're going to see that in this one.
Yeah, and it looks like, I've watched a couple games for Dallas. It looks like he can get the ball in his hands and he can go downfield too. I'm not a huge guy that watches every game, but he does look like he has big play potential. I guess it's not off the wall anymore, but Jimmy Graham, $11.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
No, he's toast, dude. Especially like the moment we take – Aaron Rodgers off the field,
it's not going to go there.
He wasn't doing it with the best quarterback in the NFL or one of the best. What's he going to do with Deshaun Kaiser? I don't think so.
Yeah.
I'm going to veto that play. All right, we're going to leave defense to you guys because we are running long here on the show today. He is Mike Brown. You can find him H3 Buddha over there on Twitter on RotoGrinders. And Mike, thanks for jumping in on short notice and talking some Yahoo with me.
No problem. Thank you for having me. Best of luck. This is the best tournament value you guys are going to get. If they keep rolling this out, you better be jamming your lineups in here because this is the best tournament to be in.
No doubt. If you're, again, paying $20 to $200, make sure it is on Yahoo this week. $250,000 in guaranteed overlay once again. And it basically filled. I think they were like 60 short last week. I think it's going to fill this week with everybody already making their deposits. And remember, we obviously play to win. But as Mike said, he cashed like 8 of his 10 last week. The cash lines are so much more in your favor when you have negative 33% rate versus the 20% you see on other sites. Check them out this week. For Mike, I am Dan Bach. Good luck this week on Yahoo, and we will see you.